The condition is really crazy condition.
And that shouldn't give away the whole secret to professional windsurfing.
Maciek giving Antoine elbow a run for his body. Here we go. What a finish!
The guy is kind of talking bullshit.
The team's just got to work a little harder. Welcome to the Windsurfing Podcast, back again for episode 21. And this week, we're going to talk to a Polish rider who was super successful at youth and junior level. But then when he came onto the PvB, he found it hard to break through. We're going to talk about sports psychology and the mental approach. We're going to talk about how it was to finally break through and get their first podium places. We're going to talk about other riders, aggressive sailing. We're going to talk about other sailors and their best attributes and which ones you would steal. We're also going to talk about sponsorship. We're going to talk about the Olympics and the first ever session he had at Jaws. Who is it? Well, it is, of course, Maciek Rutkowski. Maciek Rutkowski, this is your life. With so many people, obviously, are tuning in to the podcast over the last, I don't know how long we've been doing them. It feels like we've been doing them months. So people now know you as the podcast host. But obviously, I know you as a professional windsurfer and someone who's been pushing through from a young age to get to the top, of that PWA train. I mean, you made your first podium a couple of years ago. So this podcast for me is to explain to everyone out there who you really are, how you got to where you are, and maybe a little bit more behind the scenes of Maciek Rutkowski. So, Maciek, let's go through this.
I don't mind. I don't mind the podcast host hat. I get to grill people without any consequence.
I mean, firstly, I got to pull up that because, I know you. You're a windsurfing fan. I class myself as a windsurfing fan. So, firstly, is it like a bit of a dream to be speaking to some of the guys you've been speaking to? I mean, you were speaking to Robbie Nash a couple of weeks ago. How surreal is that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And a friend of mine texted me after the podcast launch, like, you had a funny little smirk on your face the whole podcast. Like, like that they could tell that I was just enjoying every moment of it. And I was, because I never got to talk to Robbie Nash. And now not only I get to chat to him, but also get into the thick of what I actually thought of him for all these years, and every kind of, I get to confront every legend that's been around there about him and all these kind of things. So it's great. For me personally, I think I enjoy it maybe even more than a lot of the people out there, so that's good.
Did he live up to expectations?
First of all, like, we have to tell the people that everything we put out is unedited. And throughout the podcast, you can see I was maybe I always try to get the people a little bit out of their comfort zone, and the guy is just so good at just answering questions and being stoked about everything. And it was like, he definitely lived up to the, just the perfect, the king, he's the king. Yeah.
Obviously he is the king of windsurfing. I guess you must have grown up watching Rip. Was that?
I'm actually too young. Too young. I grew up watching About Time, the Polakau flick and Josh Stone, the Aloha Man, and PWA World Tour Highlights 99, Namoru Fiji Wave Classic. These were like the 4 VHS tapes I had. And like 3 of them are gone. I don't know. My dad borrowed them to someone and they never came back, which is a freaking shame. I would love to just dust them off,
They're probably worn out though, aren't they? If they're anything like mine with the pause button, trying to work it out. Let's get into it. You're obviously Polish. Born and raised in Poland, and I'm not even, I tried to pronounce the name before, and you're like, no, that's not how you do it. Is it Slupsk or something?
Swoops.
That well-known, famous wave, but is it a famous wave spot? I've heard there's actually waves there, isn't there?
Yeah, like 15 k's from Supsk there is a beach, and there's a little bit of a harbor on the windward side, so it protects from the chop, because basically our coastline is just straight, like has no angles, no peninsula. Well, it has one big peninsula where there's like 40 windsurf centers, and all the tourists go and stuff, but that's not where I'm from. And my place, yeah, it's kind of the best wave sailing spot, or like the easiest one, like the most fun, the most playground style. But by no means it is Gincho or I don't know, Hokipa, or any of the Pozo or whatever, any of the places that breed good windsurfers, on on a regular basis. Definitely not.
Well, you say that. I mean, what I think a few people will be thinking, 40 windsurfing centres. I mean, there's a peninsula near you with 40 windsurfing centres. That is a hell of a lot. And people who don't know Poland, I mean, I obviously spent a bit of time in Poland racing back in the early days. There's a lot of windsurfers in Poland. There's a lot of racers, I should say. Is that right? Would that be a fair summary?
There's a big, healthy scene, and we have a history of, good results in Formula windsurfing and Olympic classes and things like this. And hopefully now we can do something in slalom as well. But yeah, there is a little bit of a culture, but we do have this West complex where we never feel like we're good enough, and I think that maybe drives the whole nation a little bit. But windsurfing in Poland is definitely like recognizable, like you say you're a windsurfer and it's not like, what is that? And I think, and it's been in mainstream media, and it's been, so some people are surprised when they come. Yeah, it's not, it's different. It's different. Like in France, there's freaking millions of windsurfers, but the sport is kind of low key. In England, I feel like it's the part of the surf culture, which is like being beach bums and stuff. And in Poland, it's definitely not that. It's like a sport.
I mean, I guess it's similar to Germany. You haven't got many, let's say, good waves on your coastline. So windsurfing maybe takes a bit of the surfing role. Like obviously in England, we got quite good waves. So surfing kind of is the main one before windsurfing. And I guess in other places, maybe Poland and Germany, that's kind of how it sees itself.
Yeah,
maybe?
Definitely. Like in Poland is even less than Germany. Baltic Sea is like a lake, and you would have a storm, the wind would die, and you would have 2 hours of surfable waves before they drop. It just comes and goes really, really quick. So Poland is definitely like windsurfing is the base water sport. Right now, there's a little bit of a fashion for surfing, because there is little waves. You can softboard, or you can learn maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100 days in a year, there's something. But windsurfing is kind of the established one. Kiting is probably bigger. Surfing is the new kind of trendy one, and windsurfing is the old goat in those.
Talking of old goats, Wojciech. He was, when you were growing up windsurfing. I mean, I've got here, you started windsurfing in 1997. What year were you born?
91. And
91.
I'm not sure if I started in 97. It's like, I don't remember starting to windsurf, because we were just around it. Like my dad would go to the local lake. Like we have beaches, and then you have a dune, and then there's a bunch of lakes, just behind the dune. So my dad would go to the local lake, like basically since we were born, me and my brother was windsurfing, and then it just came in so naturally that I really don't remember. I remember the first thing I remember was already planing and trying jumps and things like this. So I have no idea when I actually started. And yeah, about Wojtek, well, in like, I think 2000, he won the Formula Worlds, and he had a really good crew of people. behind him. His brother is like a marketing genius and things like this. So very quickly he became huge. Like he was on TV every other day, you know, he was like a proper celebrity. You know, like we have this, say, like, I don't know, David Letterman of Poland or whatever. He was on there, you know, all the biggest shows, he was there. You know, everybody would know him at that time. And we had big formula events and whatever. So obviously you gravitate towards that. And also my dad, somehow he found that Wojtek's dad is actually a coach and has this kind of group. You would go to like amateur classes, and then you could graduate, that were on the lake, and then you could graduate onto the sea where Wojtek's dad was coaching, which was freaking amazing because we all stayed together in a caravan park. And, you know, you were rubbing shoulders with pros, you know, like with a world champion. And then you could strive towards that, you know. So after 1 year of being in the lake, I went to the sea, you know, like officially the age limit was like 15 or something, but I was, I think, 11. And yeah, it started from there, you know. And I'm really thankful to all these people that were there at the time creating this, because for sure I wouldn't be here, you know, without it.
Yeah.
Many,
I mean,
many of the Polish windsurfers, they came from the club and the Olympic thing and whatever. We were totally not into that. I wanted to be a wave sailor, freestyler, you know, and this and that. So you know, so being in the, you know, training on the open sea and whatever, going, you know, I could go wave sailing in 14 knots, you know, when you're 11, you grab the 4 meter and you go, you know. So yeah, was a really nice time.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it, how that sets where you're going to go to almost for the rest of your life. You know, Wojciech, and I remember Era, is that a big telecom company, was sponsoring a lot of events. There was a lot of money in it. There's a few girls around. There was a lot going on. I mean, I saw all the pictures and the videos from early days. And as a young kid growing up, that's what you see. And I guess that's your vision, is it? I mean, you say you wanted to be a wave and freestyler, but the racing,
yeah, you know, and then also I mentioned that, like, in the UK, it's kind of all, you know, living in caravans, living in vans and kind of beach surf bum culture. In Poland, it was freaking Hollywood. It was total Hollywood. Like you say, this Era Cups, and then Era got bought by T-Mobile, I think. So then another sponsor jumped in, and by that time I was already like, I was 15 or something. So I was all into, you know, partying and all that Hollywood type lifestyle, you know, and like we would close the contest with a prize giving. You know, you would go out to the podium and I would not see the end of the crowd.
Jesus.
You know, you would get like, you know, get some flowers, throw them in the crowd, chicks going crazy already, you know. Then 1 year we had Bonnie M, a concert of Bonnie M at the prize giving. So then, you know, we climbed this, like we were partying just below the stage. We had a little VIP area. You know, between, like on concerts, you have the barrier, like let's say 5 meters away from the stage. So we would be in between the stage and the barriers. Okay. And we were there like having a blast, you know. And the chicks from Bonnie M, these grandmas that are like 60 years old by that time, you know, they drag us up on stage, you know. And then, like, I don't know, Arnon goes, "She's crazy like a fool," and the chick is like, "What about Daddy Cool?" You know. And then the next year we had Shaggy, you know, and like after the concert, you know, you would party with Shaggy and he would be there with his massive bouncers, just, you know. Yeah, it was full on Hollywood. It was definitely something, I think, different than most windsurfers would would experience, you know, at that age.
I'm going to say, but that definitely has a bearing on your vision for the future and what windsurfing is for sure. I mean, I listen to your podcast obviously all the time, and your questions are always like, yeah, but what was it like? What was the chicks? What was the partying? And because I guess you grew up in that era where you were in the probably epicenter, like Poland was going crazy. I remember it. So it's interesting. It's interesting. So in terms of you and competition, what do you remember your first competition? Do you remember your first good result in competition? Because that usually has a bearing on whether you're going to follow that route.
Yeah, I think any given weekend of the summer, there would be a national event, and they would always give me a prize for the youngest, or I would be up there in the under 17s or something, you know. And then, yeah, I was pretty much straight from the moment I started competing. Somehow there was some attention, you know, and I think that it kind of drives you to, you know, that there is some value in, I don't know, like I just remember like always, yeah, being on podiums and stuff and having some success, and then wanting to do more of that because I don't know, it felt good or whatever. Now it sounds really shallow right now, but this is what I remember.
Yeah, but I was going to say, at an early age, those things really do have a bearing. And I remember one of my first competitions and going up and getting given a product prize or something, and you're kind of like, oh, this is pretty cool. Or you get to go on a trip somewhere, or, you know, being part of the teams and stuff. And I think this does definitely set you for the future.
Yeah, you get some roof rack straps or a t-shirt, and you're freaking stoked, you know. It's amazing, you know. And yeah, and also I think I was so much younger than everybody that I think, you know, there was this amazing, you know, like windsurfing is such an amazing community. Like everybody tries to like help the young guys and the younger generation, because it's so rare that you see a, you know, a 12-year-old competing with grown men, or even like recently I saw on my home spot like a 9-year-old girl wavesailing. I was so stoked, genuinely, you know, like you want to find out what's there, what's, you know. So I think this happened to me, and then by the time that you reach like a normal competitive age, then you're already good, you know. So when you're good at something, it's a lot easier to continue, you know.
Also, you obviously mentioned your brother earlier. He is a keen windsurfer and a very good windsurfer. He's had some results in his own right, I think at youth level, I guess.
Yeah. He was vice world champion youth in Formula. And then, yeah, you have this measuring stick, which is, you know, so much better than you, because 5 years difference on a you know, on the junior youth level is huge. So then you strive for that, and I remember exactly the first time I beat him, just because he had this weird idea to go on Gastra, and I grabbed his Neil Pride, like 2 years old Neil Pride, and I was just quicker, and like I think it was like I was 60. No, what would I be? He was 50, I was 15, and he was 20 or something. And we were at the nationals, and I finished 5th and he finished 6th or whatever, something like this, you know. This I remember, but yeah, it helped tremendously. Also because he's such a good windsurfer till this day, you know. He's doing back loops, forwards, tabletops. He just competed in the foiling nationals after, you know, 10 years of basically a desk job and whatever, you know. He got a medal on the and now it's kind of funny, it's almost the opposite, you know. I'm like dragging him like, come on, you know, we have the slalom nationals, come, you know. He's like a lot lighter than me, you can use my smaller gear, you know. And then he goes out and gets a third in the slalom nationals, and I'm fucking so stoked, you know.
It's like riding a bike. You don't forget. You get a bit rusty, but you don't forget. Okay, so talking about youth competitions, obviously I've seen the bio in my research for this podcast. There's a couple of world titles in there at youth level. Talk us through them and who were the guys around you at the time, because obviously at youth level there's a top limit, but what generation were you in? Who were you mixing with? Who are the big names that are still doing it today that you were racing with back at youth level?
Yeah, like my first international youth contest was 2005 in Christchurch, UK, and I was in the under 17s. I think they didn't have. I was under 15, but obviously you're competing with the under 17s, and Pierre Mortefon won that. So, and then the under 20s, Julien Quentel won every single race. So these guys I kept seeing pretty much every year, like Worlds and Europeans. Mortefon, Alex Cousin, Enes Yilmazer was freaking amazing. He was destroying us. Basti Cordell was really good already. And we're talking both Formula and slalom. Everybody was doing both, at that time. Like Mortefon was a bit better in slalom than Formula, but those Christchurch Worlds, that was Formula, Who else was there? Matteo was there, but he was crap. I don't even remember him. And then he just exploded from nowhere. Malte Reuscher was there. Who else? Jordi was there, and he was already like good as well. Like the youth roads that I won, he was leading for a few days. So yeah, a really, really strong generation. Yeah. And that really helps. You know who was really good? Jules Denel was killing it.
Really?
Absolutely killing it in racing, both course racing and slalom. He was really, really good. I don't blame him for going into the waves, later on, but yeah, he was really, really good.
He had long hair back then, didn't he? The blonde, long locks. I remember when he was.
Yeah,
racing.
He had blonde, long hair, and it was always the Polish, the Brits, and the French getting up to no good, and these hair every last, like I remember these hair being kind of all sticky and weird. That like Joe he always liked to finish the event on a high note, let's say.
Is there anyone from back then who's not doing it now? I guess you probably mentioned one name, but it's just interesting for me because sometimes you see people at youth level just absolutely killing it, and then suddenly they obviously want to do something else with their life or just lose the love or something happens. But is there anyone you think, I can't believe they're not still doing it, or what happened to them?
Yeah, one name is obviously Enes Yilmazer, who was absolutely killing us in the youth, and then he came onto PWA, and as an 18-year-old or something, he finished top 10 in Turkey, and he was really good.
Do you know what he's doing now?
Yeah, he's like a realtor, or something, doing with real estate.
Like hundreds of thousands or maybe even 1 million now followers on YouTube, and he goes around like mansions and massive houses in LA and Hollywood, and it's kind of crazy. I was chatting to him the other day actually, but I just think it's so funny that you have a windsurfer who was like one of the best at youth level, goes through the PWA, has some okay results but doesn't quite cut it, and then now he's just doing this YouTube channel which is just gone crazy.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, I think he had a nasty ankle injury, and then he never really came back. Then you really need to push, and he moved to the US, and he saw how much of business opportunity there was, and he just decided to do something else. And the other name that comes to mind that never really did the youth contests, or sometimes did them, and when he came, he absolutely destroyed us, was Gabriel Brown. So Marcilio's younger brother. He was like at 16. Like I remember, we were 14. He's the same age as me. We were 14, and we could compete more or less together. And then when I saw him next time at 16, he was like top 15 on PWA, and I was kind of still in that same place, And I could probably put myself into that category, like killing it at the youth level, but I didn't realize, like Gabriel, he was always in that Maui crew, and Phil had his arm around him and things like that. I didn't realize what it took I thought that being the best youth means automatically you're going to be good in the open fleet, which is not the case at all. Like when I won my youth world title, I got a wild card for Costa Brava, and I was not even, I was like, I don't know, I was halfway down the reach when the guys were jibing. I was not even close, not even, like, it was. So so you have these different, I talked to Pierre about this on the show. You have these different paths and different ideas. Some guys, they just have this vision of being one of the best windsurfers in the world on PWA already before. My thing was always, okay, win the junior title, win the youth title. And I did that, but then the next step would be like, win the PWA title. That's just like, yeah.
It's a big jump, isn't it? It's a big jump. So at what age were you? What was your last year in youth?
2010, I won the youth worlds. So then I was like 18, 19. You can be 19, but I'm born in December. So yeah, 2010. And then 2010, I did Costa Brava, Turkey.
So that was the first PWA event, Costa Brava, 2010.
Yeah, I did one. We had one in Poland in Formula, but I don't think it counts. I mean, it was like 2004 or something, so I was like 12. And yeah, was just like a mascot pretty much for the event, I guess.
Yeah. So 2010, you've done pretty well. You almost cleaned up at the youth level. You come on there full of confidence. I do remember you. You were quite a cocky, still are to a certain extent, but it's definitely been backed off a lot recently. I've seen in the last 2 years. I think you've definitely grown up a lot. But I 100% remember you coming on the PWA tour, and I thought, my God, this kid is the cockiest bloke I have ever heard. Giving it loads. I mean, talk me through that, because I mean, you've definitely had some self-realization, I think, recently, and maybe you've kind of realized, looking back, well, maybe I was a bit too cocky. Was that a conscious thing to kind of build yourself up, or was that just coming out? I mean,
no, I think I don't know. I think it's like you say, growing up in Hollywood, and then winning, and then you think like you're on top of. And for me, PWA was always a dream, like more than any Olympics or anything. PWA was like, and I felt like I made it, and yeah, I don't know. I don't remember being cocky. That's the thing. So it must have been normal. It was not something like, oh, I'm going to show the guys. It must have been normal, and but I've heard that from a bunch of people. So there must be some truth to it.
There's a lot of truth to it.
I'll try to blame it maybe on English not being my mother tongue. I don't know. Does that cut it?
No. I get to use that excuse a lot. So let's say you get onto tour. What sort of sponsorship are we looking at now? So youth level, has that given you any sponsorship opportunities? What sort of deals are we talking about? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this, maybe up and coming guys, or maybe even in that sort of area where they're thinking, what sort of deals can I expect? Can you give us any insight to sponsorship deals at that point? Youth world champion, breaking onto the PWA, or not breaking on, but getting onto the tour is not easy in itself.
Yeah, and I was already doing a bunch of media, because when I was in high school, the way I was making money to even buy gas for the van, I was working for a website, for like a news windsurfing website. There was a bunch of those back in the day, not like now. And I was just putting news, so I could put whatever I wanted, and I was doing videos, and I was writing the kind of bigger pieces about the PWA on that, and things like that. I had some previous writing experience. We were always writing reports and things like that since I was, 14 or whatever, So by that time I could write quite okay. So I was doing a bunch of media, and I was already like visible to to like the local market, let's say, and then maybe like some of the videos, they were like trying to get visible on the international market, or even though you don't deserve it yet, so it comes across really cocky, I guess. Coming back to that, so I was getting 2010, I was getting some gear on loan from the Gastra Taboo importer.
Okay.
And
So how does that work? They lend you the gear for the whole year. Is that to do with the Polish importer? Is that how it works? Through the local stuff or international, or?
I don't know if they had any deal with the international. Back then you don't even know how to. Well, you're gonna write an email to info@Gastra. You're not gonna do, or if you do, nobody's gonna reply. So I was getting some gear on loan from Gastra Taboo and giving it back from the importer of Gastra Taboo, and I was giving it back at the end of the year, and they could sell it without really losing any money, and whatever, and so it was quite a good deal. And then for 2011 or 12, I got sponsored by an energy drink, which really, really helped to get on tour,
Okay, so money. I'm guessing not just drinks.
Yeah, it was money. It was like 4,000 euros, I think.
Okay, that's decent.
Yeah, which when you're 19, it seems like a lot of money, and also back then it was a little bit more money than now. So that's really helped me to get around like a few of the events, and then some IFCA events. You would make some prize money, and things like that. So it was not easy. I was kind of sleeping in tents, equipment tents, and slept in Marco Lang's van, and some events, I had no money, like none, like later on when I was with Patrick, we would meet like somewhere in Europe, and I would travel with him in the van to the events to save money or things like this. It was definitely not easy.
I mean, that's what you've got to do, isn't it? Because it is an expensive sport, when you look at the gear, but even just traveling in fuel costs. I mean, you're talking about driving, it costs a lot of money. So, okay, you're on the tour, 2010, you break on, you got like lightning going on in the background in your
my island is dissolving. You remember the show Lost? When it was imploding, the island? I think my island is...
No, I was going to say, so 2010, you've just done really well at the youth level. You broke onto PvB. Realization has hit. This is going to be a bit more tricky than I thought. How long did it take, or did you ever, in that point between, your breakthrough, which I'm guessing was around 2017, or you probably saw signs earlier than that, but 2018 was proper breakthrough, I'm guessing. But maybe how long before that, there was some encouraging signs? Or was there any point in that where you went, oh my God, I don't know if I can be, maybe I chose the wrong path? Was there any points like that, or you always there, fully committed?
No, yeah, for sure. Many, because especially at the end of the year when you think you made huge progress, and then like you don't get any credit with the contracts and things like this, then you're like, fuck, how do I, because I come on tour, I hit a wall, and then I'm kind of a pragmatic person, so then you start from scratch, and you're like, okay, first thing is pass the first round, and then you pass the first round, and you accomplish a goal, and it doesn't matter how big or small the goal is, from the outside it might look small, but for you, I mean, I'm as happy as I was on the podium in 2019 or whatever, so you accomplish a goal, and then you're stoked with that goal, but from the outside nobody really appreciates it, cared or anything, And then you probably, you talk about it, you talk what you feel inside, you say what you feel inside, and then you're like, this fucking guy is cocky, so. So then 2012 in Costa Brava, I got 14th.
Okay.
And now when I look at it, I see that it was a function of the conditions that were just super light in Costa Brava. Somehow you never get lift. And I had gear that was just perfectly suited for there. I had a board that planed like a dream. And I had a sail that would lift the board on the rail instantly. I would close the sail and it would lift the board, And later few years, I had gear that was low. And in Costa Brava, I was struggling like immensely, So I got 14th there. And then, then like you get, I don't know, I remember I got my first interview on Continent 7, and people congratulating me and whatever. And that was good. But then the rest of the year was obviously totally crap again. And then 13 and 14, I got 7th in Silt because it was a one elimination thing. I got to the final.
But still.
Yeah. So, so every year there was some sort of encouragement, I guess. But every year there would be kind of huge downs as well, Like in 2015, I finished like 50th in Costa Brava or something because I was trying to put a 9.7 onto a 81 wide board, and it just was glued to the water like you cannot believe. I remember some local wildcards, I couldn't pass them, and by that time it was my 5th year in Costa Brava, so long years, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of times you want to quit, but luckily you're young, luckily you're still like 20, 23, 24, and your peers, like the guys at your age, they're still studying. It's not like everybody around you is making millions or whatever. So, it somehow got through it,
No, but so when was your actual breakthrough, or when did you realize you had to change something to get consistency? Because by the sounds of it, you did have the odd good result coming through that time, which is obviously how you keep yourself motivated. You've obviously carried on having sponsors. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but a few different changes of sponsors. What was the big breakthrough to get to where you are now? Because for people who don't know, you've had your first podium on the PvB, you've won races. We're going to talk about the race that you nearly won in Japan, because that was kind of a highlight for me on the commentary.
Korea. I remember we had a nice conversation after that.
So, Tenerife training, obviously that has something to do with it, because I remember when you're on the 0.7 team, and I think it was Andreas Cookie, I guess, his idea to do this training in Tenerife, and now that is morphed into what it is today. Maybe talk us through that training and how that all came about.
Yeah, that really helped for sure. That I think to get Pierre touched on this as well. I think to get good, to get to a certain level, you need to have certain abilities. Like imagine a video game, you have your footballer at FIFA or your basketball player at 2K or whatever, and you have, I don't know, shooting, you need to have 80, so speed, you need to have, I don't know, 75. Jibing, you need to have 75. Mental toughness, you need to have 75. Physical endurance and strength, you need to have 75. You need to get to these things to actually have a chance to consistently get results. And the 0.7 training in Tenerife, it definitely helped with the windsurfing ability, because Tenerife is just such a hard place, and it's physically demanding. And so I guess a lot of I consider myself right now like technically or skilled, skilled, like in terms of jibing and starting and controlling the gear when it's on the edge and things like this, So I think a lot of that came from there, from being there at 22, 23 years old or whatever, for One year I went in mid-November and stayed there until end of February, with Alberto, rest in peace. So yeah, so it definitely helped. But then you need so many more things, because even if you have the speed, the jibing, and you need to put it together. You need to be able to perform, to execute what you call execution in some other sports. Yeah. And so that basically means at that moment in time, you need to be able to bring your 75 speed and your 75 jibing and you know what I mean? So this, I think, came a lot later. I think this started coming in 2018. In 2015, I realized like, shit, cannot be that everybody here is strong. Like I would shake somebody's hand on tour and I would feel weak. You know what I mean? Because all these guys, whether it be naturally or because they trained, are beasts.
Yeah.
The fucking beasts. They're big, they're strong, they're, and you see a guy like I don't know, like Enrico, that was the opposite of me. He had the strength, but for example, he didn't have the control at first or the jibing, but then he's making the same results as you, so you're like, okay, shit, I'm missing something,
Yeah.
So I realized, okay, I was missing the physical aspect, so then I locked myself. Like I heard of this place that they had all sorts of training, like they were preparing all sorts of athletes, and a friend of mine hooked me up with the main guy, and the main guy told me, you're not a professional athlete if you're not training 30 hours a week. So then I was there. I rented an apartment there, and for 3 months I was training 30 hours a week. I was waking up at 5, going to a spinning class, then going to like a strength / endurance class, then maybe doing some balance and coordination stuff, going back home, eating, going to sleep, waking up like at 3 p.m, eating, and at 5 p.m I would be there, have like some sort of class with core balance or whatever, go to the gym, finish it off with yoga. So it's like an hour and a half each of those blocks, and then go back home, eat, go to sleep. And I did this in 2016, like the winter of 15-16. And then I was already a lot fitter, but I was missing the strength. So I realized, okay, more hours in the gym, less hours of spinning, or less hours of cardio or whatever, So then that kind of evolves, and in 2017, I remember coming to Tenerife, and I went from like 89 to 94 kilo. And I remember, man, the board didn't move. I could not believe. I would get a gust and the board would just stay down. And I had the same boards. I was on Taboo that didn't change the boards from 16 to 17. And I would get a gust and the board would just stay down. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is what all these guys have. And I didn't have for 7 years, I was trying for 7 years already, And yeah, so then you already have the straight line a little bit more, the jibing I felt I always had, but now I was 94 kilos. So all of a sudden I had to relearn my new body, and then again, I got on tour, and sometimes I executed and sometimes I didn't, and then you're like, where does this come from? And then you get to the melon, and yeah. And that's, I guess, a whole another chapter.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I kind of love that because I was following you on social media, and I was watching the Jedi training, so to speak. So standing on a ball, doing all these crazy stuff. And I remember thinking at the time, this guy is taking this proper serious, because in windsurfing, maybe people do take it that serious, but you don't always see it. So to see you doing that, I think psychologically was quite a good move for you, for other people to go, okay, he's taking this seriously. But listening to you, it's interesting. It seems like the weight was a big thing as well. Is there an optimum weight for slalom? Because I'm obviously doing a bit of slalom at the moment, and I really feel like if I was heavier, I would be better. No questions.
It's easier to go faster when you're heavy, for sure, because you just convert more power from the sail into the speed into the board. That power goes through the harness, it goes through the UJ, goes through the joint, but it also goes through the harness, through your hands, into your legs. So then leg power, and that year that I gained like 5 kilos, I went from squatting maybe 90 kilo to 120, and now I'm squatting like 150, 155, maybe 160 if I really try for a max, so that, there's a bunch of things, and it's just this huge complicated sport. And I just decided like, okay, I'm not naturally there. It's not gonna happen. After 5 years of trying, I was like, yeah, it's not gonna just happen by itself. Let's dissect it, let's analyze it. And I wish I did that, or my coach or my dad or whatever, somebody did that when I was 16, because to see that, I could jibe, but I was super skinny and I couldn't do, man, when I was 15, I couldn't do 5 push-ups. I was really, really skinny, till this day, I'm struggling with a lot of strength things, because you don't get it when you're on the development stage, which is probably between, 14 and 18 or whatever, then it's way harder later. But at the same time, that gave me a lot of the drive and the passion, like, oh shit, I can do this, and it's actually helping, and then you have a lot more consciousness about how that process is going. And yeah, it's till this day, like, performance, let's say, is kind of a hobby of mine. I love to dissect why certain things happen to me or to other athletes, even in other sports. I have a very different view a lot of the times than some pundits or some other people.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I like the way you ended that with the melon. And obviously, people who don't quite understand what you're talking about psychology, the brain, the head, the mindset. And I mean, I've studied quite a lot of sports psychology, and that for me was the biggest thing. Obviously, everything else needs to be in place. You need to have the skill. You need to have the equipment. There's so many things going on. You need to have the physical, whatever. But if the head isn't right, you ain't going to win nothing.
Yeah, I think we skipped the equipment, but I guess we can get to that when we talk about sponsorships. But yeah, the head was huge, because there was this contest in 2017 in Denmark, where I had a nice rhythm, and I just kept starting good and jibing good and making good decisions. And I finished 7th after, like, I don't know, 9 eliminations in all sorts of conditions. And I think this really helped me as well, because by that time, my windsurfing skill, let's say, didn't have so much holes. I mean, sure, it still has holes. I mean, I'm not freaking Antoine Albo for sure, but I went from a guy from Poland that's never seen more than 20 knots to, grinding it out in Fuerte, going to Fuerte 3 weeks before the event, and catapulting God knows how many times, and being concussed God knows how many times, because I couldn't sail straight in that freaking place. So I put in the work in high wind, and we had an elimination with 5-meter sails, super choppy, and we had all sorts of different stuff, offshore, onshore, whatever, and that really helped me. But I was making good decisions, and I was like, shit, if I raced like this all year, I wouldn't finish 16th, or whatever I finished in 2017. I would finish a lot higher, and that kind of gets you wondering. And then you see certain guys that also you didn't consider them too strong mentally, namely my friend Enrico Marotti from Croatia. He and I asked him, and I knew like, hey man, you're working with somebody, because at that time I already approached like 4 different psychologists, and they were all just like there was no connection, like they wouldn't commit to knowing the sport, or to getting to know the sport. This one lady, she would hook me up to this machine, to this biofeedback machine, and she would just keep asking me the same questions, visit after visit, so then after three of those visits, you're like, what am I here for even, so then I knew Enrico was working with someone, or I suspected. So I kept grilling him. We stayed together in Silt, and he finally told me that he's working with this guy. So I kept grilling him to give me a contact. And obviously it's competitive advantage, so you don't want to give, but at the same time we're friends. And if we could share that coach, it would be easier financially, because we could take him together, on contests and on trips and whatever. And so that's how I met Pero. Now he's also a very good friend.
What year was this? Sorry.
I don't know. I think it was end of 17.
Okay.
I don't remember, or something like this,
There's no
where I felt, it was the moment that I felt like, okay, the physics are there, the physicality is there, the windsurfing skill is kind of there. The gear could be better, but I guess we'll get onto that. So okay, so what's missing? Shit, am I really just not good enough? No, let's try to get some competitive advantage. And and get a sports psychologist or a mental performance coach or whatever it's called, and it worked. And a lot of people say, it's so mature of you to realize your weakness. It's not weakness, it's competitive advantage. Like if you test a fin, it's not that you realize your current fin is worse. It's shit. It's weak. No, it's the same thing. You work on your gear, you work on your mind, or you work on your body. It's the same thing. But
I personally think it's probably the most underused thing in windsurfing as a sports psychologist. But again, you just hit the nail on the head there. It's difficult to find one that's actually interested enough to go into the sport and work with you and do all that stuff. So I think
a lot of people use it, but nobody really wants to share, because why would you? I'm doing myself a disservice right now talking about it, because maybe somebody will be like, oh shit, but it is what it is. I've never really had a filter, and probably many times said things that hurt me. So it's not the first, probably not the last time.
So we talked about the head. That's kind of interesting. You've got sports psychologists, and definitely the timing of that between the next year was when you got your first podium, isn't it? 2018, or at least you were winning races, or nearly winning races. I mean, Korea.
Actually, I think what happened was I got my first podium in 17 in New Caledonia in foiling.
Okay.
And because of that, and foiling was the next big thing. And because of that, I finally got some interest from other sponsors, namely Nova was coming along, and, we had a relationship from before. I don't know how it started, but, Cesare was, we were already acquainted, let's say. And they took me because of foiling. Actually, I was kind of a foiler,
Okay.
with that podium. So then straight away, I got put into developing boards. I had some experience from working with Patrick before, and and then, you know, for the boards, I needed sales. I went to Tarifa. I tried, like, there was 3 different brands on the table. Also pretty much only because of foiling. One of those offers was financially way better, but Challenger was faster. And I was like, okay, this is not the time to count your coupons. This is the time to put in great results, you know, because I saw also that the boards were good. And yeah, I think that 2018 was the first year that everything slowly started to come together, you know.
But it's obviously a difficult decision, and there's a lot of slalom guys I know out there that do face that sort of problem, and it's kind of worse in slalom than it is in wave. If it's in wave and you sign for someone you don't like the board, not everyone does it, but you could get a custom board, spray it up, and no one matters. Whereas in slalom, you have to use production boards. So whatever boards you sign for or sales, you have to use exactly straight off the shelf. So for you to turn down more money, I know there's a lot of riders out there that have took the money, but then not got the results. And that just has a compounding effect later on. And then no one wants to sponsor you, you lose your deal. And then, so it's difficult. So it's quite a big decision.
Yeah, it's an evil cycle, isn't it? I mean, my sponsorship story is generally quite, you know, I've been changing brands or whatever. I think what's really important is you need to feel comfortable in a situation, you know. And yeah. Until 2018, I never felt comfortable, you know, and that doesn't help as well, because you're trying, you know, like with Patrick and 0.7, with Patrick, I didn't feel he treated me seriously to a point where it's like, okay, we're going to develop this guy and later be, so he can later bring us results, you know. Yeah. With 0.7, I kind of felt threatened, let's say, all the time. You know, I kind of felt like there was always new guys on the team. There was always guys coming and going. There was always this movement. There was always, so I was like, I kept feeling I need to prove myself all the time, you know, all the time, you know. Then with Gastra Taboo, excuse me?
Is that bad, or do you think that was a conscious thing from Andrea Cookie to keep you on your toes?
I think in many, yeah, I don't know, you know, I think he has a way to push people, whether, you know, sometimes he nails it on the head, sometimes he misses. I don't know, you know, but at that point, when you're barely making a living, you're looking for a little bit of comfort.
Yeah.
You know, and I got a little bit more comfort on Gastra Taboo financially, but the gear didn't suit me at all. Like, it was totally not my style, you know. The guy that could make it go fast is Ross, and Ross has the opposite style of me. Ross is super light-footed, has no power in the gear, uses fins that I couldn't even go straight because I would spin out. I need juice, you know. I need thick, big boards, sails with drive, with power. You know, I can hold it down, but I cannot. Or now I can a little bit more because I worked on this, another thing. But it's very hard for me to create power, to create lift. You know, also because of the height, I'm only like 183. You know, and whatever. I don't know why, but it is what it is. You know. So then, obviously, you can make also the gear go faster by, you know, trying all sorts of different masts and tuning your boards and whatever. But Gastra Taboo is like a corporation, you know, like you go there and you just get the stuff off the shelf. It's not like you're gonna go to the warehouse, measure 10 490s and pick 2 of your best ones. They're not gonna be able to do that. One time I drove there to Cologne, and the guy was like, yeah, we have everything except the 520, because there was a customer here last night and he needed a 520, you know? So it's like, you get this kind of feeling like, you're just a small piece in the big machine, And then there was also some personal stuff. Some people in the company were kind of trying to get rid of me, writing weird emails to the boss, and that I did this or I did that, or I didn't do this or I didn't do that, that I was acting unprofessional, or I don't know, whatever, and then poor Ross had to iron these issues out because he's the team manager. So again, it wasn't really all that comfortable, because the gear didn't suit me. It wasn't bad, but it was not amazing. And plus it didn't suit me, So then 2018, first time, I jumped on the boards and I felt straight away comfortable. Boards were fast. I found fast sails for those boards. Also the combo worked together. The foil board I developed with Finian. Finian was the shaper of Nova Nova at that time. So, and he couldn't really foil at that time. So I was, he didn't get a feel for the board. So I was kind of the main guy that would bring him all the feedback and get ideas and whatever. So we developed that in Tarifa, like late in the year of 2017 after I signed. And and then I don't know what was the question, but I guess I'm telling my sponsorship story. And then in Fuerte 2018, I guess he's gonna kill me for revealing that. He came to me and said, "Look, I'm leaving Nova Nova," because I was drilling him like, "Okay, let's do this for next year. Like, let's change the cutouts like this. The rail, it could be more like this." I was fully into it, and I was like ready. Around Fuerte, you're probably starting sometimes to talk about contracts, and I felt super comfortable. I was like ready to sign a 3-year deal if they gave it to me,
Yeah.
And then Finan grabs me and we go for a walk, and he's like, "Look, blah blah blah, it's really time for me to move on, and I decided to start my own company, and I would like to have you as my rider, as my main rider," he said, just to put some icing on the cake, So then I was like, shit, finally I was comfortable, and now you get thrown this curveball, and then I was starting to do good, like do a little bit better, Korea, whatever, almost won, catapulted, whatever. But Japan, I won a foil race, whatever, So yeah, so then it was a bit hard to make that call, because Finian is a shaper. He's a guy that's gonna probably drive the performance forward. But they always say, like, the culture of a company comes from the top, so if you feel comfortable somewhere, why leave, and Cesare was amazing. He flew me out to Italy. We had dinner or whatever, this and that. So it was really like a nice problem to have. By far, first time in my life, nothing ever came close to that. But it was hard because I felt gratitude towards Cesare, and I felt this performance drive towards Finian, So it was like, yeah, it was hard.
But in the end, you got to go with the shaper. I mean, you just said it. You've been on other brands which the money was good, but the kit didn't suit you because it was made for too many people, or different style to you. Whereas if you've got a guy like Finian Maynard, who is shaped with some of the best board brands and produced some of the sickest slalom boards known, back when he was working with RRD, and then obviously Nova Nova with you, it obviously fits your style. And he's putting his arm around you going, "Yeah, I want you to be my main guy." I mean, that's a good move from him if he really wants you, because that would be very hard for me to turn down. And it obviously was too hard for you to turn down.
Yeah, for sure. But you don't know, like, it's a guy that is a shaper. He's never run a company before.
Yeah.
How do you know? It's like he can say, like, he said, like, my company is gonna be run really German style. You send the invoice, next day you have the money, etc., etc. and it turned out to be true. But before you sign the contract, you don't know. You know, obviously to start a windsurf brand, you need financial backing, or you need, you know, so it's like, it's hard. It's hard at that time. Now it seems like a no-brainer because I'm with FMX. We're successful and whatever, and the dynamic really grew from there because we didn't really know each other as people so much. Finian is a private guy. You know, I'm out there, but I'm also very different in a working relationship than in a buddy relationship. You know, I'm a lot more professional, I have to say. So yeah, you know, it was hard. It was hard, you know.
Like you say, looking back, you think it's easy. It was an easy decision, but actually, probably at the time, it wasn't. It obviously was a good decision because since then, you've had your first podium at the World Cup, which we got to talk about Denmark. I mean, how was that? Obviously, you've done well on the foiling stuff, but I'm pretty sure from when I saw the emotional sort of Enrico Marotti when he won his first race and stuff, the PvB slalom is the pinnacle for you boys.
Yeah, it's also, it's the thing that, you know, I did my first event in 2010, you know, the podium is in 2019. For 9 years, you're there grinding, you know, you're at the same, you're there trying to find some advantage here and there. And you see, for some guys, it comes naturally, or they just find themselves in a good, comfortable situation with the gear and whatever, and it just happens. You know, so many of the guys that I grew up racing with and that I considered myself at least at the same level, you know, they got success before me. You know, by the time I got my podium, Basti Kurdel had 2, you know, Jordi was already 4th in the world, you know, and these guys, you know, deep down in my mind, I didn't believe I was worse, you know. So you're asking yourself how, and it chips away at your confidence and whatever, you know. So yeah, so the slalom, the foiling, you know, we saw as a flick and whatever, and you win, but it doesn't have that prestige. Try to get a contract just off of foiling is not that easy. Slalom has been there for 40 years. Slalom is where Bjorn was. Slalom is where Anders was, Antoine, all these guys, you know. And also, the harder it is, the better it tastes, for sure. You know. And you mentioned that win. Well, I had to win I didn't have to, but anyway, I won that last final in Denmark to get on the podium. It was also like 18 months, you know, like I almost won a final like 16 months prior to that. You know, so to get that, and like you say, you know, Enrico broke down crying. Is the toughest motherfucker you would ever meet, you know, and the guy breaks down crying, you know, when he won this. And, you know, for me, you know, a lot of things need to come together. The final, you know, like you can run the whole day on 7/8 and you're fast on 7/8, but for the final it drops and you're on 8/4, and maybe your 8/4 isn't as good or whatever, you know, like for me last year I would have probably won like 2 or 3 finals on 7/8, but Matteo was just untouchable on 7/8. You know, and we came down the first reach so many times, first and second, but I could never, it was just always half a board or whatever, you know. So many things need to come together, like they did in Korea, where I catapulted, that I had an 8.6 that had great high end, great top end, you know. The wind picked up like nothing else. Cedric, that actually came half a board in front of me to the first mark, hesitated because he saw me on the inside, and was super overpowered, so he almost couldn't jibe. You know, then I jibed great at the second mark, like, because I got a wave. You know, sometimes you will not get a wave and there's nothing you can do. In silt, you see it all the time. You know, I think Matteo lost the world title like that, you know, because he just jibed into the back of the wave and there was nothing he could have done, you know. So many things need to come together. And yeah, I don't know what was the question.
Yeah, but the thing I think is, like, you got to remember, only one person can win. And, you know, you're not the only one training. You're not the only one looking after the gear. You're not the only one trying to get that win. And that's what people don't realize. When I was training for the Olympics and all this stuff, you realize that there's only one person that can win. There's only 3 that can get on the podium. And, you know, to be 4th in the world is amazing. But to the outsider looking in, they're like, oh, yeah, you finished 4th. It doesn't even enter their head that that's a good result, weirdly. You know, especially at the Olympics. I look at the crowds and the country. If you get 4th, it's like you've failed. You know, apart from your close friends and your close supporters, 4th, they'd be like, oh, well done. But to the general public, they're like, 4th, we only really want the winner.
Yeah, that's why you have to. That's one of the first things that the mental coach tells you is you gotta judge yourself on your performance, not on the result. You know, because at that moment of the start, you can only start perfect, push like crazy, jibe perfect, and if that brings you 4th, you did 100% of your ability. You cannot work on your ability during that final, you know.
Yeah.
So why would you care? You know what I mean? And it's a hard mentality to have, very, very hard, you know, but it's the right mentality. And I think the people that have that mentality are the people that come out on top consistently somehow, you know. If you ask Matteo, he will not tell you, oh, I came 2nd. He will tell you, I had a bad jibe, or I had a good jibe, or I did this or did that. This happened, that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see. It's definitely interesting. Did you find that once you got your first podium, the confidence grows, everything grows, people then maybe look at you a different way and go, Maciek has gone from maybe that top 10 or just outside the top 10 to now this guy's a contender. Jesus, he's fast. Actually, he's always there. Does that change the way they race you? I mean, you've had a couple of tussles in the past. I was going to come on to this with a few riders. But did you find that win change things for you?
Honestly, I find this fucking funny. I find it that so many guys are on tour for a while, for a long time, and they race you. They see how good you are and whatever, and their whole outlook on you changes by one result. Like, or guys in the industry, actually guys on tour, maybe not so much. Guys on tour realize, you know, but guys in the industry or the general public, you know, some people, like, you get a great start, and just because of that great start, you roll everybody, and they think you're the fastest guy in the world. So many times I came to the mark before Antoine, and they're like, you're faster than Antoine. I'm like, no, I'm not. You know? So definitely people judge you a different way. But again, you can't really pay attention to that. What really, I think, changes, or it shouldn't change, but it's human nature, is the confidence. Because you got to believe before it happens. But it's just so hard to believe before you've done it, you know? It's like, and I think this is an ability that the best guys have somehow. I don't know, but like, it's, you need to believe. Confidence is not something that is rational, you know. It needs to be an irrational confidence. And I have to say that throughout all the thin years, let's say, I was missing confidence like nothing else. Still till this day, I'm probably missing confidence, you know.
But you were voted during that time the most dangerous sailor on tour. You remember that on Windsurfing TV? I'm pretty sure you won the vote for most dangerous sailor. So was that a conscious thing? Were you just pushing hard, or did you think you were dangerous, or did you just think everyone was out to get you? Or I mean, you've obviously had some run-ins with Cedric Board. That one springs to mind. I've seen pictures, I think, in Turkey of you two having a go. I've seen, obviously, the famous one in Fuerteventura where you've got your hand above your head looking for the punch, you know, and obviously your no rules video. It's all in there.
Yeah, I think a lot of things came into that, you know, because, yeah, I race hard for sure. But I can remember 2 instances where I crashed into someone, and I can remember 3 instances. Sorry, 2 instances where I took somebody out, and I remember like 10 where somebody took me out. But because I'm so out there with my emotions and my, you know, and making a fuss out of it, I think people remember, you know, like this guy was in that tussle, and don't remember like in Fuerte, Cedric took me out, you know, and people remember, you were trying to punch Cedric in the water. He took me out, you know. It's not like, how do I get a bad rep for that, you know? And then obviously I make a video out of it because I'm trying to get publicity, to get your value up, whatever. But the bottom line is, it was not my fault, you know? And then in people's heads, it's in there. And yeah, I don't know. It's stuck. This how you say, this opinion stuck. And to be honest, when I saw that video, it sucked. Like my brother showed it to me, like, look. And I was like, really? Fuck, you know, it hurt. It kind of hurt because these are the best guys in the world. These are your peers. And I still remember Mateus said in there, like Maciek goes for it, but he knows what he's doing, you know? And this is how I would love for it to be portrayed. Yeah. You know?
Well, who said that?
Mateus.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's fair enough.
You know, so, but...
Who, in your opinion, is the most dangerous sailor on tour?
I don't see it that way. I don't think there is...
Most out of control. I'll put it a different way.
Yeah, you know, like, I think Tati had a few moments where he... But I think nobody wants to crash. It's just misjudgment, you know? When I took out Pascal in Fuerte, which I'm really sorry, I was really, really sorry for, because he had a horrible event, and then I just added to that. Matteo hit me on the first mark, and then on the second mark, I had this tunnel vision that I'm going to pass everybody, and I went on the inside, and there was no space, you know? It was a misjudgment. It was not that I was trying to be dangerous or trying to take out Pascal or whatever, you know? I don't think anybody, but yeah, historically, like probably Tati had some bad judgments, and maybe Malte, I don't know, and maybe Andrea Ferrin that also took me out like in Fuerte. But I don't hold it against the guys, because everybody races their best, and I want to see tough racing. I want to see hard freaking rail to rail sail on, you know, like putting your boom on the other guys. I want to see that, because
me too.
It's good. It's good for the sport. It's good for the public. It's, you know,
if you're racing hard, there's a gap. Obviously, you're going to maybe go for the gap. But I guess isn't for you as a racer, you think, well, if I go for the gap, he might back off and then the gap stays open. But it depends on the racer. If he just closes it, he's also a little bit to blame. So it does work both ways. You know, like the guy will go, well, I don't want to leave the gap open, but he's left the gap in the first place. The problem is...
And, you know, like, and also, you know what? To add on to that, and what you asked before, now that I had some little success, I don't think many guys will call me dangerous. And also, having raced last year a little bit with the big three, man, they are triple as aggressive as anybody else. These three guys, they race so much harder than anybody else. It's just, and it's like, and they get off the water. Like I remember in Fuerte, Matteo left like a half a meter gap. Pierre went for it, fully hit his sail, but they both came out of it, but Pierre overtook him and took second place because of that, for the whole event. And they came out of the water, and it was all respect, because there is no bad intentions, there's no bad intentions. And these guys race super hard. I remember a race with like Antoine and Pascal, and that Antoine did kind of a dirty move, but he won in the end. That's why we have no rules. Like he won, And then there was the famous one with Matteo and Arnon in Portugal, where Matteo went on the inside of Arnon really hard, and then Arnon was really not happy about it. And all the French on the beach, they were all complaining, like, look, this guy is so dangerous and this and that. But in the end, 10 times out of 10, Matteo would do the same, because it's what it takes to win. But
there was a gap. There was a gap all day long. Like when I watched that, I remember commenting on that race, and I think.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you race nice, you're not gonna win, and somehow it's like you get excused if you win. Like I don't, you know what I mean? A little bit, like.
Yeah. For sure. I think if you're one of the top guys, you're going to push hard. If you're soft and you let people go inside you and you don't go for gaps, you're going to get taken as a quite a weak racer, and you want to be known as a strong racer. I'm not saying you should race dangerously, but you've got to race aggressively. I mean, it is no rules. Like, as long as it's not dangerous sailing, I think the
line is so thin. And you know what is the worst feeling? The worst feeling is when you don't pay attention and you leave a gap on the entry and somebody shoots in on the entry of the jibe. Yeah. I was in New Caledonia. I was fighting for fourth or even for third. Like Enrico, Antoine, and me were fighting for third. And Pierre and Matteo were fighting for the title. And I come down the first to reach third. I have Pierre and Matteo in front of me really close. So I back off. And what does Enrico do from behind? He shoots in, and all credit to him. I felt like such a pussy, because I had in my mind that these guys were fighting for the title, and it was just such a weak thing for me to do, and in the end, Antoine took third. Didn't really have a chance, but I had a chance for fourth, and I finished fifth because of probably that one move, Yeah.
Question: if you could take like best attributes from any sailors on the tour, the speed of one guy, the jibing of another, the headspace or the tactics or the starting ability, give me your like perfect. Who would you pick? Which attributes would you pick from which guys? Like, I'd love to know which ones you respect for different elements of their sailing, and you can pick yourself for any if you really feel you are the top one.
Antoine is pretty complete, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you could just say Antoine, okay, we're done.
So if I have to switch with one guy, all the attributes, I would take Antoine. But let's take him out of the picture, because we can keep coming back to his jibing is probably better than this guy, whatever,
You think he's the perfect one? I'm interested anyway, but
he has some holes, like, but he knows how to trim his gear to cover these holes. He knows how to position himself on the race course to cover these holes, etc., etc. But aside from Antoine, Pure board speed, I would take Pierre, probably. Racecraft, I would take Matteo. Light wind.
What, tactics? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, positioning yourself on the course. The thing he does every other heat where he comes from the pin, he just had a shitty start. You think he's totally deep. And then he just jibes mega tight on the inside. Like he jibes from the inside to the inside of the guys. You know what I mean? He's inside on the entry, but he's also inside on the exit. So he just jibes a lot tighter and comes out with a ton of speed. You know, that thing just saved him so many heats, you know? So I would definitely take his kind of racecraft, you know, like jibing, like making decisions, you know, and I think mental fortitude is his strong point as well, you know, because he's really consistent, you know. Light wind speed, I would take from Arnon, definitely. If I can have his lift, I would never feel sticky again, you know. That's the worst feeling when you have a guy on your ass and it's light wind. It's light and you close the sail and there's nothing and the board is sticky and you're like, you know, trying to lift it up and whatever. I don't think Arnon has that ever. So yeah, what else? What other abilities?
Equipment knowledge, like in tune with their equipment and getting it to, you know, maybe tweaky.
Gonzalo was always good at tweaky. Who else tunes the crap out of the gear? By now I have a very good understanding of the gear. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, physicality. I would take like Bruno's physicality.
Bruno Martini.
Yeah. Take out his chest hair though. It's a bit too much, but
he's a beast. He's been training a lot on the bike. I know that much.
He's a beast. The guy is like 94 kilos. And on the road bike, he just goes head to head with guys that are half his size. It's incredible. And then he bikes. I'm like, you've been in the gym. He's like, no, I've been biking. I'm like, how come you didn't lose any weight? If I go biking like that, I'm 75 kilo, you know? And then, yeah, you know, we can get into, I don't know, the style or whatever. I think Finian has the sickest style in straight line, you know, like really nice looking and whatever. Yeah, pure board speed, Finian.
Gonna say that as your boss, mate.
Hey, before the Fuerte event that we finished close to each other, I think I finished 6th, he finished 9th. I wanted to go home. We were testing together. I wanted to go home. He was destroying me so bad. I was like, oh my God, I'm so slow. And then I started the first heat and I was like, shit, I'm actually coming first to the mark. Where is everybody? The guy was so fast. So fast.
Makes sense. All about starts. Who's got the best starting on him? Who would you?
Finian is up there. I have my moments for sure because starting in the middle is not easy. So if you nail the start in the middle, it's really rewarding. Who else is a great starter? There's so many. There's so many French, you know, like I didn't mention any French, like just Pierre for the board speed. Yeah.
Jibin can get out of any problems. Jibin, come back through the fleet. Who's the best fighter?
I think Matteo is up there. Tati had his moments before his injury. He had like jibes where he didn't back off, not even half a knot. He would just go full speed. And this is not only balls, this is also a lot of skill. Yeah, man. I don't know. Quentel. Julien Quentel, jibing and getting out of. And if I can have anybody's luck, can I please have Quentel's?
I tell you, from Furta, was it last year? Was it Furta?
I was battling him every single event from Fuerte onwards. And it was like, when is it gonna end? You know? So yeah.
Okay, off the water. Who's got the most? What's the word?
Swagger.
Swagger. Yeah.
Swagger. I don't know. There's guys. Yeah. Like you know, Tati. You can take a picture of him anytime, and he always looks cool. You know. Shit.
Best hair.
Well, am I not up there in the best hair?
You told you can nominate yourself, mate. Nominate yourself.
I don't know. It's hard. We've been off tour for such a long time now that it's really, really hard to remember. Even remember, you know, a lot of these guys. You know,
it's actually
Tristan has some swagger also. You know, like
yeah, he's got dance moves as well. Tristan Algray, obviously. Interestingly, I've got to get your thoughts on this because I don't know if you noticed the Speed World Tour or whatever it was that happened at the weekend. Couple of PvB boys going down there. Matteo Iachino, first speed event. I thought that was kind of interesting. Obviously, Antoine Albo won it, really close to him and Matteo. Did you not fancy it? I mean, I saw a few of the boys there, but I didn't see all the results. What's stopping you guys doing speed? I've always wondered it, but there's so little PWA slalom interest in speed, even just to have a go. It always surprises me.
I think it's a thing like, we still have time.
Yeah,
you know, I'm
okay.
28, and like Laufer is 50, and he's killing it in the speed, and I'm like, okay, you know, I still have a little bit of time. At the same time, it's a bit of a mission because I don't have boards, I don't really have sails, and I think anyone that's been at least half successful doesn't want to get into something totally unprepared. Okay. You know, I don't want to go there and be 4 knots off the pace.
But do you want it? Surely you must want to go and see how fast you can go. I mean, that was when I did it, it was like, in my head, and again, I talk about the proper speed sailors only talk about 500 meters. That is it. You won't even entertain the VMAX. Whereas me, as a normal, I class myself as a normal sailor, it's all about the top speed. If I look at cars, they don't tell you what the average speed is, and no one gets excited. You want to know what the max speed is. So for me, and then there's always benchmarks, you know, 40 was a benchmark, 50. So I always said to myself, I want to try and just peak 50, which I somehow accomplished. Is there not something in you that goes, I want to?
Sure. But if I go to Luderitz, spend, I don't know, it's like an 8,000 euro mission between gear, probably 10,000 euro between gear, travel, all the things, you know, and then come up empty-handed just because one little thing was missing. You're going to be kicking yourself. So to do it, I want to do it properly. I want to go to a couple forecasts to La Franquie, you know, with my GPS, see how fast I'm going, see how the gear feels. I'm going to get a feeling for the gear. Okay, I need more lift. Okay, I need, you know, I can sacrifice this for this. I can probably play with the buttons and whatever. Imagine you arrive to Luderitz and the first day is the record day.
Trust me.
You know, you're not going to go over 50 just like this.
But you have to put your ego a little bit out the window because you are new. And I think that is maybe the problem. The PWA guys have got this reputation. They don't want to get there and, let's be honest, be beat by some 55-year-old ex-wave sailor, you know, like Farrell O'Shea. He's been over 50. And, you know, these guys are so technical and they have done all that work. Is that a thing that you think,
I don't see it like that. I don't see it like that because, for instance, we did the IQ foil in Silvaplana and I just received the gear there. So I put myself out there, but it's just you want to do the due diligence. You don't want to, it's almost like disrespecting the canal and the whole event. You know, if you just rock up there, unroll your brand new sail I've never done speed in my life. I did a couple speed runs in Fuerte. I did 40 knots on my 7.0 and my 90 liter, you know, so I was quite happy with that. But I don't know if that's fast or not. I have no idea. Like, so I just, you know, like, yeah, certain things. It's the same. It's a very similar. It was really tempting to go to La Palma because I was actually on the entry list, but I just didn't manage to put all the logistics together, you know. Yeah. And it's a similar thing like when I went to Hawaii and there was a Jaws forecast and you're like, fuck, I'm not prepared at all, you know. But this might not happen ever again.
I was impressed with you sailing Jaws because when did you sail that? It was a few years ago now, but I watched your video the other day in a bit of prep for this just to get a bit of background. And it's pretty funny because before you've even gone to Maui, you've already told yourself you're going to sail Jaws. And I was thinking, how is he just like, I've never sailed Jaws. I won't lie. I'm not a massive big wave fan. And if I am, your due diligence or whatever you want to call it, I would be like, okay, I need to work on my breath holds. I need to get myself in a place that if I took a wipeout, I would not die. So, but you are at Poland going, right, well, first day looks massive. I'm going to get to Maui. I'm going to organise jets. Going to go straight to Jaws. And I was thinking, my God, how is your brain even thinking that?
Yeah,
obviously,
it was funny because I booked the ticket in September for end of November, yeah. And I was thinking, like, the only thought that didn't leave my head about Maui is like, what if there is a Jaws swell? What do I do then? And in my mind was like, okay, I'm not gonna be this unlucky that it's gonna be in the first days, you know. I'm gonna get a warm up at Hokipa, whatever, figure out my fins, figure out, you know, I had this board that was very badly suited. It was a production board from Nova Nova. It was 63 wide, 220 long. It was just terrible, you know, for Jaws. But because I didn't go out at Hokipa before, probably I didn't realize that, or I don't know, I was trying to block it out, you know. But it was just this feeling of, am I ever gonna get a chance to do this ever again? And with speed, I feel like I will. With Jaws, I feel like there's so much focus on the windsurfing career, on the slalom, on this and that. You're probably not gonna get a shot again. And the first day of the swell was the massive swell that they had the contest. And I arrived like the day before. I went out in Kanaha. It was like 7 knots. I drifted out. It was just me and Jeff Henderson in third reef Kanaha, which basically needs like, I don't know how many, like 40 feet to break or something. It was double mast and the easiest, nicest conditions you would ever imagine. Like plug and play double mast high, if that ever exists. I could not believe, you know. So I was like, fuck yeah, you know. So at that time I already kind of, you know, I already had the ski half organized and the guy and whatever. And then I stayed for one more wave. Jeff already left. And I got eaten, broke the mast. And if anybody knows Kanaha, knows how far it is. It was third reef, so it was outside of upper Kanaha. You know? So it's really far out, like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 kilometers, no idea. So I rolled the gear. And as I was wrapping it all around the board with the rope of my extension, the current dragged me back into the impact zone, and I got absolutely destroyed. I was trying to sit on the board, like grab it. I had the board, you know, underneath me, and I was holding the rig with the broken pieces of the rig with my arms. So that all went away, you know. All I got stuck with is the boom in my hand, you know. So I tried to swim with the boom, no chance, you know. So I drop a brand new carbon boom, swim, because you have to get the board. You're so far out, there's no way, you know. You have to get the board. I swear I was paddling for the board for 35 minutes. it was just exactly the same speed I was traveling swimming, the board was just doing with the current, you know? And finally, it got to some little, you know, like there was so much water moving, it's so much energy from the ocean. The forecast was like 40 foot, you know? So, yeah, so it finally got stuck in some river that was going around or something, and I finally got to it. And you know, by that time I knew I was gonna be okay, you know. I was still fucking far out and it was already after sunset, but you know, like at least I was not gonna die, you know. And when I was swimming full power for stretches and then kind of getting few breaths, and like I was fully in like survival mode, you know. And everybody saw the videos with the sharks in Kanaha, and I passed a massive freaking manta ray or stingray, the white one, you know, things like this, and I was freaking out, you know. So I arrived. So then I swam back to the beach. I guess sunset was around like 7:30. What is it, Maui? 7 in the winter, something like this. And I arrived to the beach was after 9 already.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I broke like so many golden rules that you never break, you know, and I'm not ever going to do it again. You know, you don't sail alone. You don't sail alone. You do not sail late in the day.
Can I just remind you of something? Because when I was in Australia with you, you also broke some golden rules, because at Nalu, sunset out the back, I seem to remember you coming in at the dark with the broken mast there as well.
Yeah, but we had a jet ski on the beach, so I felt safe.
Okay.
No, but and the next day I had to go to Jaws after this Kanaha thing. You know, so I was like, first of all, I needed to organize a boom because I didn't have, you know, so like it was tricky, but I went and I'm happy I went. You know,
how? Like, tell me, because I do not know. I would just ring Kai Cachadorian, so I don't know. How do you organise Jaws? If you want to sail Jaws, I'm not saying people out there are going, but you might have a few people. What do you do? Do you have to? How do you even go about that? Or who did you even know? Who to speak to?
I asked around, and I think Brauzinho or maybe Casey Hauser told me this guy Maxi, this Argentinian bloke, is the best rescue you can get, you know?
Okay.
So I called him and he was free for that day. The previous day he was doing rescue for the WSL, you know? So the next day he was free. And yeah, it was super pricey, but
how much? Roughly.
I don't know, like 600 or 800 for half a day. Okay. Something like this, you know, but fuck, you know, it's a once in a lifetime thing. You're made it already all the way there. The guy is supposedly the best guy. You know, you have the jet ski for yourself.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous, man. I couldn't rig on the jet ski. I was like shaking. I was incredible. And the guy was looking at me and I knew he's thinking like, what a fucking cook, you know? But yeah, in the end was a great experience, except I would like to do it again with a proper board and maybe a little bit of a better day, because it was kind of a small day and choppy and
windy. I think that's probably a good thing if anyone's going to do Jaws for the first time. Okay, you want some wind, because I've seen a few light sessions look just horrendously scary.
Yeah, and there's no wind in between the waves. There's no wind anyway. So I jibed out of a small one and I saw a set coming, and you're there like, and you know, on top of the wave, it's really windy. So the feathers that come off the lip start really early, you know? So you see this thing 50 meters away from you and it's already feathering. You're like, oh, holy shit, you know, and you're pumping for your life. And then you finally come on top of it and you do the classic polaka where you cannot hold the gear because it's so windy on top, you know? So then you're swimming and there's the next one feathering, you know, and you see the West Bowl, you know, people talk about the West Bowl. When you see it on video, you don't realize that it's actually 40, like you stand on the, imagine you're swimming in the impact zone of Jaws. So the normal wave comes straight at you, and the west bowl would come like 45 degrees, you know? So yeah, it was scary, but it's one of the things that was on my bucket list, and I'm so stoked I've done it, you know?
It's definitely on my bucket list. The 50 knot VMAX was on the bucket list. The sailing Jaws is on the bucket list. And I've got a different opinion to you, because I feel like I could do that when I'm a bit older.
Yeah. So that's what 50 knots is on my bucket list. The Peter Fallwater Club, which is a great idea of yours, that you need to be able to do a double. You need to be able, I think, to sail Jaws, to do 50 knots or something, you know, all these things that Pete, our dear friend Pete, you know, rest in peace, did. And that makes you like this complete windsurfer, you know. Win a final on PWA could be one of them, you know. So yeah, I'm missing the speed, and I'm missing the double forward, which scares the living shit out of me, because I crashed a few times pretty hard.
I should release that whole thing properly one day. I will do that. I'll actually write a thing for it. But yeah, so the double forward, you've tried a few?
Yeah, I tried a few, and the first one I did was totally, like, I guess, unprepared, because I went fully end over, and I just went like kind of with my head, you know, and got a full like whip and whatever, and I didn't want to do them for a couple of years. And then when I tried, I kind of, you know, if it doesn't go perfect, I let go, and feel like a bit of a pussy for that, you know, because like nowadays, like 13-year-old guys do it, you know, and I'm like, consider myself to be a good windsurfer, and I cannot do it, you know. So
yeah, but I mean, it's interesting actually, because we've obviously talked about your slalom, your foiling, that's what it is, but you've definitely got good roots in the wave sailing. Obviously, you don't come from a hoop keeper as your backyard, but like you said earlier, I think at the very beginning of the podcast, you actually wanted to be a wave freestyler, which is kind of funny looking back. And obviously you've done all right. You've gone through a few heats in PWA. I remember a famous one, I think even in the trials, where you beat Jamie Hancock.
No, it was not. It was a 48-man fleet, I think.
Oh, the 48-man, okay. Yeah. But then you made the video about it, and we still take the mickey out of him, because there's this video of you looking down at the camera like some sort of rapper saying, and I beat Jamie Hancock, he's like 64 kilos and I'm like 84. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cringy. When I look back at it, it's pretty cringy, like, yeah.
But it's good. I mean, for me, you've done well. You've got through heats, and I won't say, because you're a good wave sailor, but I feel like you're better in the heats than your sailing ability, if that's not a rude comment. Like, you actually beat guys who maybe could do more moves than you, but you sailed really a solid heat.
Yeah, because I think it's just growing up in a competitive environment. I was competing since I was 11, you know? So now when I wave sail, I want to get my moves like, you know, right now I wave sail a lot better than when I tried to do the tour, because we cannot call it that I did the tour. I tried to do the tour, you know. Yeah. But still till this day, like, I don't know, I want to have these moves consistently, you know, because yeah, I don't know why. It's just, I think it's just like, yeah, if a nationals happens or something, I don't know why, but it's just, so then you want to, so again, you know, you break it down, you break down the heat, and what do you need to win that heat? You probably need to get your jump in early, no matter how shitty that jump is going to be, and then pick the best waves. And then if you get an extra jump, fine, you know. And every time I won a heat, I had a strategy and I followed it. And like last year I did silt, and I got pounded in the shore break on my first wave. And then the strategy went out the window, and I was just trying to win the heat on a Hail Mary or whatever. I was trying to do the best thing I can, and it just doesn't work, you know?
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Believe it or not, these guys like Philip and Brosinho and Ricardo and these guys, they also tone themselves down, I guess, in those heats, you know? They just do the things they know they can land, you know, and push forwards are one of those, just happen to be one of those things, you know.
They are pretty impressive sailors, I've got to be honest. Watching the videos and watching the heats on the live doesn't, for me, do them justice, actually. It's always a lot harder than it looks on the live stream. And I can tell you what, the slalom is no different. When you watch Furta on the live stream, the guys at home, don't get yourself lulled into a false sense of security, because even just doing slalom here in Sagres, which is flat, with a few people around, I mean, I've spoke to you about it, it is intense. You know, it is intense. And I cannot even begin to imagine the PWA, 8 of the best guys in the world in, let's say, the semi-finals or even the quarterfinals up, coming into that first mark at full tilt, choppy, shouting. It must be just terrifying.
It's amazing. I absolutely love it. And when somebody tells me that slalom is boring, it's just a bunch of fat guys going around a simple course, you know, because this is the notion that we get from the course race purists, you know, the Olympic and all that kind of crew, you know, sailing, let's say sailing, people that grew up around sailing, you know. I'm like, yeah, right. You know, it's the best feeling ever. And you're competing. I guess it turns out I'm very competitive then out of this conversation, but you're just competing man to man. It's like you're competing as straight as it can get. You know, you get the same conditions, same course. You're not gonna, you know, have some lucky whatever, you know. If you're gonna pass me, you have to pass me straight. You know, it's like, I don't know, like car racing or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling. And the windier it gets, the better it feels, because aside from having 7 of the best guys around you, you're also putting your gear on the absolute limit to go fast. This is what people don't realize. It's funny because I go sailing at home and a guy would be 100 kilos and he would be a size or 2 smaller than me, you know. But the only way to go fast is to have consistently a lot of power in your gear and put it on the limit, you know, have as much as you can hold. And that feeling, you know, you're on the edge, you're I think, yeah, race car drivers could relate, you know, you're putting the car on the edge and you know, and you're competing against other guys doing the same. It's sick. It's amazing.
I think for me, high wind slalom, there's not a lot of racing sports in the world that is more exciting than tricky, windy slalom. Like Furta is a perfect example, or any of the place we've had when we've had difficult conditions. I'm not a massive fan of the flat race course. It kind of gets a bit stale for me. You know, it's still exciting, but if I compare it to windy hard slalom, you know, we saw some good stuff in Korea as well. We've seen stuff, Denmark, anything windy where people can make mistakes. It's some of the most exciting racing I think you will ever see. And I'm well hopeful that in the future windsurfing will attract a big sponsor that sees that potential.
Yeah.
But
Pozo was supposed to be back. Let's see how it goes now with the pandemic and whatever. But
this would be absolutely amazing. And then we've also got, which I don't think we've got time to touch on, we're going to have to go through to the Quickfire soon, but the Olympic stuff now, you know, the Olympics now has a representation of proper, as I guess you guys would call it, proper racing, proper windsurfing with up-to-date equipment. And we are then going to showcase that, which the Olympics is one of the biggest showcases you can get. If it ever happens.
Finally. I didn't believe it would happen in my lifetime. I always thought that the Olympics is going to be some sort of shit. And I think a lot of people get this wrong. I don't mean any disrespect to the athletes that are in there. They are amazing athletes. But the class is shit, the RSX class, and it hurts the image of windsurfing worldwide. And
it's like racing Formula One in Ford Fiestas or something. You know, you've got the best guys in the world, but they're not racing the high performance that everyone knows can be made. And now I think with the gear, what we've got in the Olympics, I think it's going to open it up. Yes, it's a one design equipment, but from my understanding, other brands will be able to make it. It's just going to look a bit different. But in terms of a spectacle, we've got slalom, we've got racing, we've got the RSX sort of Olympic crew mixing with the PWA crew. And from what we saw in Switzerland, I think it's going to be a great success.
I also don't like this divide, this division between these are Olympic guys and these are PWA guys. You know, it's like, Jesus, I'm a windsurfer, you know, and Kieran Badlow is a windsurfer.
Yeah, but you've got to, there is a divide, and that's the interesting thing for me. These guys have done RSX. It's a different body shape, a different tactical thing. And then you've got you guys, which are used to racing your own equipment, going on to one design. So there's two different categories. Maybe in a few years, that won't be a thing because you will be one category. But at the moment, there is definitely two clear different categories. The only thing that I worry as a small 80 kilo windsurfer who probably was a lot lighter is where do the light small windsurfers fit into the whole chain? Like, I've always said it, but I would love to see a world title for under 80 kilo and under guys. And I think it would be really interesting for guys like me, who Antoine Albo is no doubt the idol that everyone looks up to. But for me, I find it very difficult to relate as a slalom sailor, let's say, that I'm trying to do now. Who do I look up to? I don't look up to Antoine Albo because he's too big. The gear he uses, the fins he uses, I would be looking at an old version of Tati Franz when he was 78 kilos, you know. I'd be looking at what he was using, or I'd be looking at the smaller riders. So if you had like this category which was under 80 kilos, we would see maybe people like Babu, you know, Benjamin Ogier.
But do you want an NBA? Do you want a basketball league for people that are under 180?
Well,
I think we're just getting too specific. It's just the specification of the sport. And a guy like Thomas Goyard is doing just fine at 74 kilo in foiling, you know. And
I'm not saying there shouldn't be, but high wind slalom. Actually, high wind slalom is not the real problem, actually. But I do feel like it would be exciting racing seeing smaller guys race slalom, because they will never take on guys like you at 90 odd kilos or Matteo Iachino. Yes, they will have a good go at you, but to consistently beat you has been proven. I heard the video earlier of you guys saying, well, you've got to be 94 kilos to really have a chance on the PWA. That's unrealistic for a lot of windsurfers out there. So they're kind of missing their smaller idols, if you know what I mean. I don't know, just an interesting thought that I've been thinking about recently after getting back into slalom.
I think you're thinking too much.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
I just thought it'd be kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And again, the Olympics, and that's how I see it, as I would have loved to have done slalom, but I never thought I was big enough, which I think is true. And that's why I went down the Olympic route, because it was more, I was fitting into that Mistral 1 design at the time. And then RSX came about. And again, it was a certain body shape and size. So it's going to be interesting how this new one and what is the perfect size, or maybe there's not a perfect size for the new IQ foil, who knows? And that is a kind of interesting point for me. You know, will it be a certain shape or size of rider which will benefit on the gear?
Yeah, some conditions yes, some conditions no. Let's see, you know, like right now it's a good mix. Right now it's a good mix, and I hope it stays a good mix. It's the closest we've ever had in the Olympics to having an overall sailor, because you have slalom, you have course racing, you have all sorts of different things.
Yeah. No, I like it. I'm sure it's going to be good, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay, Maciek, well, obviously no real proper tour this year, but if there had been a tour this year, you would have won it, because there was only one PWA event over in Croatia. You won that, but unfortunately you won't be the 2020 PWA World Champion. It's a shame. I wish they'd have given certain points, because it would have been an interesting way. At least you'd have had a champion this year. It feels wrong to not have a PWA champion.
Just send me the wooden trophy, like undercover. You know, don't tell anyone. Just
I need to get hold of that guy, because I want one making for my indoor. Okay, right. Quickfire. I know it's not Quickfire, and I don't know the questions off by heart, so I've got my bit of paper here, so I'm going to have to read them. Right. Are you ready? You know the questions. You probably know them better than me because you ask them every week. I've got the first one here. What have I got? What are your pet peeves?
I said it a million times on the podcast because a lot of people don't know what are pet peeves. I cannot stand the dentist. I'm like sweating and just like shaking, and I don't know. It's like a phobia, I guess, dentophobia. And I cannot stand liars as well. Like if I catch you lying, you definitely lose a little bit of respect in my mind.
Yeah, what's that thing? Is something about what's the hardest to get and the easiest to lose? Respect. Okay, 3 apps you can't live without.
I guess Windy.
Been using that a lot.
Yeah. Shit. I have to say Instagram. I hate to admit it in front of myself, but I guess, yeah. And then WhatsApp you could live without because you can text. Shit.
You come up with these questions.
I know. Which idiot came up with those? Let me check my phone. I see what apps I have here. Spotify to listen to podcast, to the Windsurfing podcast.
Okay, makes sense. There's one here. How many times would you pee your wetsuit a day? I'm guessing you know this one off by heart.
As much as I can. I love it.
Have you ever or know anyone had an accident in your wetsuit? I'm talking
I don't think I have.
You don't think
Definitely
you have?
had to, squeeze it. So maybe just a little resin or something. Raisin.
Oh, don't say no.
I don't know. But
Okay.
no. But I know many people that, I have to admit that there were times where I put my wetsuit just to pee. Like I wouldn't take it off, but yeah, I would like be in silt, middle of the beach, thousands of people around, and like the line to the toilet is huge. So you don't go, you just put on your wetsuit and go flush it out. Go flash it out in there.
You put it on to do what? Jesus. I've never put one on to have a wee. Jesus. Okay, what's your guilty pleasure? Please don't say that.
No. I don't know. I should have probably prepared more. I don't know. Wavesailing, like so many times there's a good forecast and I should be on my slalom gear and whatever, but if there's waves, I just cannot help it. And I go.
These are your questions, remember? I thought you'd have like polished answers.
Questions I wrote, Jesus.
What's the biggest misconception about you?
Did I write that? I don't think I ever asked that. I hope that I'm cocky, but I think this interview didn't really help the case, did it? Yeah, I guess that I'm cocky, and I think some people think that that because we're so competitive and whatever, I would do everything to win, and sacrifice relationships and people and whatever. I'm not, I'm a really loyal guy for sure.
Okay. We've got the top 5 windsurfers, but I'm not going to say of all time because we're going to get the same name. So top 5 windsurfers from the last 20 years. So
the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So then Robbie is out of that, I guess.
Yes.
And then Bjorn, I don't know if he's in there. Antoine needs to be in there. If it's top 5 of all time, these 3, Robbie, Antoine, Bjorn, they have to
I know that, but I'm fed up of hearing those names. We know that. They're like, I want to hear some new names.
And Robbie had a good take that that if you like, that there is a couple that really changed the sport, and there's a big bunch that could that you could put or not put, and you would kind of hurt somebody by putting somebody else. But the last 20 years, well, Polacao, Antoine, Rauzinho, Sarakita for the versatility. And then again, you know, like you can have, for the versatility, you could put Peter, fall water. You could put Ross, you could put definitely. So underrated, I guess. Yeah, man, there's so many. So many.
Sure. Who's in your eyes the most underrated windsurfer? It's a very difficult question. Every time you ask this, I think this is such a hard one.
Yeah, Ross has got to be there.
But is he underrated, or you think he's underrated for what he should be? Because I mean, I rate him very highly.
I think some guys just don't like the publicity too much. Like Toma Traversa is a good example.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't like the publicity so much. So then he's not out there so much, you know. So these two, I've probably felt, because of the money and the contracts and whatever, I probably felt underrated for a while. Because of, I knew what I could do, and maybe probably other people didn't know what I could do. Yes. Huh. I don't know. Somebody mentioned Finian. Yeah. Shit. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot, you know.
Okay. Obstacles in slalom, yes or no?
Yes, that's my idea.
Beach start, yes or no? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I'm a massive fan of bringing, and I still think this needs to actually, someone needs to put it in place. It's like you've got to put the work in to make it happen, but wave slalom. I personally think there needs to be a tour where you go slalom in the waves, and if it's flat water, you jump over sausages. That's it. Like those two things with the beach.
But I don't
start.
think it needs a separate discipline, you know, just have the
I
best.
don't think it does, but I think you'll get so much. The problem is with the way the PvB is, or the way the system is structured, the top guys vote for what, you know, they want to happen. And the top guys are doing okay as it is now. So will they vote for change? And this is a sticking point. You know,
I guarantee you, guaranteed, as Charles Barkley says, I guarantee you the same guys would win.
Yeah, I guarantee that as well.
Amazing windsurfer.
You've got to do it. And from what I've seen in the past, there's a lot of fight back always when you try and do some change. And the difficulty is with the money at the moment. And let's say beach start, what about the fins? People were moaning, oh yeah, but what about fins? We were going to break loads of fins. What about in the waves? Who's going to repair the mass if we get smacked? And it was
these are details to iron out.
I'm with you.
Concepts before we work details. You know,
it's not a concept. It's easy. Just go slalom in the waves. Done. What's the concept? And then you'll find out the problems and iron them out as you go along. It will make it exciting, but it will make it a little bit on the edge for you riders. Me as a commentator, I'd chuck you in there tomorrow. I'd be like, right, let's get it on. Who keep a slalom? Let's go. You know, it doesn't matter to me. But to you guys who maybe are not on the big money that they used to be on, and equipment is more expensive and traveling is more expensive, lots of things do have a say in that. But in terms of doing it, it's really easy. We just stick some boys in and say, go race.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Oh, we're in. It sounds good. One spot to sail. I'm not going to say for the rest of your life and with all, but what is your favorite spot to sail, bar none? Just, you can have a nice house and a nice life. You just got to have the spot. Which spot would you pick out of all the spots you've sailed in the world?
Narlu is pretty epic, but I wouldn't want to live there. For sure.
No,
it's funny. I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and it's like every spot has a but. You know, it's like Hokipa is amazing, but it's freaking crowded. Narlu is amazing, but it's in the middle of nowhere. Chile, Topocalma is amazing, and Matanzas is amazing, but the water is freezing. You know, South Africa is amazing, but you know the social situation there and whatever, it kind of keeps you on the edge all the time. And so yeah, so many good spots, you know. Jaws every day? No.
I haven't done it one day yet.
Wouldn't be special anymore, I guess.
What's your worst excess baggage story?
Huh. I went to we were in Turkey in 2012. And all of a sudden, IFCA does this sometimes. They pop up with an event or they upgrade an event to a world championship event in Paros, like 2 weeks after the Turkey event finishes. And I have zero money. I cannot afford to fly back home and fly there. But obviously, from Turkey, everybody will change your ticket. Every airline will change your ticket to go from Berlin to Athens, to change it, Istanbul, Berlin, to change it to Istanbul, Athens, So I fly to Athens. I get to Paros. I spend a week there, whatever, sail. Guys come, we do the contest, IFCA Worlds, and it was prize money for the top 3 in cash. It was written in the notice of race. Otherwise, I would not go because I couldn't even afford to go back. I had zero money. So we do the event. Gonzalo wins. I come 4th. So I miss out on the money. Andrea Rosati comes 3rd. So I was sharing a room with Gonzalo. I borrowed some money to go back. This is actually a travel story, not an excess baggage story, but I borrow money to go back. And on the airport, and there was only a flight to Berlin Schönefeld, to Berlin Tegel, and I had my car in Berlin Schönefeld, So I land in Berlin Tegel. I have zero money, so I cannot put the excess baggage in the storage. So I just left it like in the corner of the airport. And I take like 3 trains and 5 buses and whatever to the other airport to grab my car. I take my car, drive to the other airport. Obviously, the gear is gone, fucking gone. And I just start running around. And at that time, I was on borrowed gear. That was not even my gear. So if I lost that gear, I would have to pay for it, So I'm like, oh no, I was already calculating how deep I was in the hole and kind of, just looking for it and asking the police. And they were like, yeah, probably somebody took it, but then realized they didn't need it. So they just dumped it somewhere around the airport. So I started running around like the whole area of the airport and all these kind of things. And then like as I was about to break down crying, I pass the storage and I see my bags are in the storage, like in a commercial storage, and somebody put them there. I had no money to pay for that storage. So I called my dad, which I told the year prior that I'm going to quit university to go pursue a career in windsurfing, to borrow me some money, to wire me some money so I could take out this gear out of the thing. And yeah.
Well, you're lucky they didn't blow it up.
So luckily they didn't blow it up. Luckily nothing happened. And luckily I think I won some prize money in the next event, so I could pay off that. And then I had this deal where if I made a final, I could keep a sail or something. So I kept the sail, sold that, paid off guns, and I was back to zero.
How much was your excess baggage?
Yeah.
Okay. What have we got? There's a couple more left on here. What's the furthest you've ever traveled to see a girl?
Pretty far. Probably
A couple of hours?
a flight or 2 and then a 6-hour drive. Yeah.
Right. It's good going. Who's your dream teammate?
I don't know. I was amazed how much Gonzalo was helping Matteo when Matteo was fighting for titles, both on 0.7 and on Severn. So I would love to have that kind of support, a guy with a lot of knowledge that puts your success above his,
Yeah. Who would you least like to have as a teammate? Actually, no, I'm not going to ask that. Okay, can I? Maybe I am. Who's your worst teammate? Who would you not want on your team?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
No, okay. I'll let you off. Who is your nemesis out there on the race course? Who's your worst competitor? The one you don't want to line up with? Who you had the most problems with?
I love Enrico. He's my friend, very good friend, and we share a coach and everything. but I hate to race against this guy, man. So aggressive and fast, and now he developed this skill of just always being in the race, coming back no matter how, like, it's really hard. You got to be on your toes, and like, if there's half a gap and he has to take it, he'll take it, even if sometime maybe he misjudges the situation, and you crash or whatever, but he's not going to hesitate, that's for sure. And he's fast, there's not many guys that combine the two. Usually the guys that have the speed don't feel like they have to do it in the jibes, and they're a little bit more passive, and the opposite, the slower guys, usually they have a little bit more knack for jibing, so
yeah. Okay, last question. 2021, hopefully the PvB is going to kick back in. Give me the top 5 in your own discipline. So who will be the top 5 in the slalom next year on the PvB? You
That's
can
not,
include
I didn't
yourself.
write that question, just to clarify.
I know you didn't.
No order, yeah? Or I have to put an order?
Well, you can put an order, but it helps. It'll help you.
I definitely wouldn't bet against Matteo and Pierre.
Yeah.
Let's see if Antoine is still doing it, because rumors are flying around he will retire or not. I don't believe he will, because he's just so good still.
Okay.
So we got 3. I would like to put myself in there for sure. I'm gonna, if I have the package, physically, gear wise, and whatever, we're about to see. But I think if I perform at my highest level, I can do it. And we got one more. I mean, Jordy's been there 2 years in a row. There's a bunch of guys that can do it. Enrico can do it. Yeah, all the French, you would never put it past them. The Questels, the Pascals, Tosellis, and all these guys that have been so fast for so long. Yeah.
Okay. Well, where we go. That is it. One last question. Who do you want to see on the podcast?
You?
I'm on it.
Yeah, I think you get that rep of being Mr. Windsurfing TV, and people forgot that you actually fucking rip. I would love to see the Moreno twins, but I have a hard time reaching them. I would love to see Polacao.
Anybody you wrote to and has not replied to, and you want to tell them now?
Yeah, I think Daira just had a kid. Congratulations! So I think we can. But Ibaya then would be great to have her on. Who else? Polacao, you know Polacao, how he is. It's just hard to get him to sit in one place for an hour. So I guess that's gonna be hard. Who else? Yeah, Bjorn could be fun. He also wasn't necessarily keen to do it. John Carter would be fun, but he says it creeps him out to talk.
Good. Come on.
Scotty McKercher could be fun. No, legend.
Yeah.
So many guys. That's why I do it, because I know that there's so many guys that have so much things to say. And we need to give them a platform, and I think people were amazed, that this guy is this guy is that. And yeah, I think we need a platform for that. And if you can talk to me for 2 hours and whatever it is, well, I can definitely talk.
How long it's been? God, that went quick.
Polacao, like the Robbie Nash one, I finished and I wanted to ask him so many more things, and I told him, like, we got to do this again sometime. So yeah, many guys, definitely.
Okay, mate. Well, I'll let you go. I've got the surf is pumping, so I'm going to go for a surf. But cheers for the interview. Great job on doing all the podcasts. And I speak for everyone watching because I know as we've started doing them, the audience has definitely grown. And I think you personally have got a few people into podcasts. I think they didn't even know they like podcasts because I've spoke to a few people. They said, well, I started watching it. I didn't think I was going to even get close, and then I've watched it all the way through. So I think that's a great job for you and pushing through to making it happen. So nice work,
I
mate.
appreciate everybody watching. Hopefully we bring some more content. If you guys have ideas, just don't hesitate to DM me on Instagram or put a comment or whatever. And thanks, Ben, for giving me this platform. I wouldn't be able to do these podcasts on my own, or I wouldn't have the, just to start a channel and do all this grind, and Alfie editing. And yeah, great experience. Hope we keep doing it. And I really, really hope I didn't come out as a freaking megaloman. How you say? Like the guy, megalomania, the guy that, just talks about himself and whatever. But, part of the reason why you do some certain content is because you would dream to see that type of content or be in that type of situation.
No, I totally agree.
So yeah.
Cool, man. Take it easy. Have a good time on your island over there. I'm sure it doesn't look like that in real life.
Definitely not. Let me switch it off to just like a revealing moment. Ta-da!
Very nice.
Hey, San Francisco. Okay, enough. Cheers, mate. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
So there you go, Maciek Rutkowski. We finally nailed him down. Let us know in the comments below if you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like. You've got to give it a like, surely. He's been doing a great job anyway. If you want to chip in some beer money, it would be great. Subscribe to the channel. We do a podcast every Wednesday. We've had some beauties. Nick Baker, Robbie Nash, Josh Angulo. I'd love to see Mark Angulo. They're to name but a few. We've had some beauties. As always, let us know in the comments below who you want to see. We are listening to you and we are trying to line them up. Don't you worry. So there we go. Join us for the next video on the channel, which will probably be Sunday for next week's Send It Sunday.